Good afternoon, everyone. It is the 15th of October already. And we're here for the Elementary Assessment Coordinator meeting. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the efforts that you expend on behalf of all the students in your schools. So we're going to dig in right away with the slide deck. So today, just want to touch base with you about a couple things. First of all, the purpose of why we do this meeting, just check in on some of the resources that are available. We went over that last time, but want to remind people of things that are there. We're going to talk about the winter reading screener, which is based on Act 20. So we're not going to get deep into that, but there's some things that you need to know from the assessment perspective. We'll update you on climate survey and Naglieri. We'll talk about the Apple assessment for DLI DBE grade 5, and then we'll get into the bulk of it is going to be time spent on the access preparation, access for ELL's preparation for that, and the eternal question about can someone opt out. So we'll address that as well. If at any point you do have questions, please don't hesitate to either drop them in the chat or interrupt me. I am perfectly comfortable with that. So want to make sure you get your questions answered. And if I say things that are like, did he really say that? Please double check with me. So thanks. Let's get rolling. So just a reminder again, the assessment team is part of the Research Assessment and Improvement Department, RAI. Myself, Sarah Wallner, and Jamie Anderson are the heart of the team. We are supported very well by Stacy Will in Student Services and Ben Kolash in Multilingual Education. Without them, we could not provide the support that we can give to you and clarify some of the questions that you have. So they are very important players in all of this as well. So let's just touch briefly on some of the resources that are available for you. There is an elementary assessment coordinator resource page that is updated after every meeting. I did update it. It does have the running agenda for today on it, as well as today's slide deck. And as soon as we're done, I will post the recording of that within the next 24 hours, the recording of this meeting to that site. Also on that site, if you were to go there, is a calendar that will allow you to, if you add that to your Google Calendar, it will outline the windows, the district windows for each of the assessments that we have at the elementary level. So there's a little plus sign at the bottom of the calendar that's on this page. Add that to your own calendar and it will be there until you take it down. All right. We're actually going to jump into some updates about the winter screening process. I know we just finished the fall, but I know there's also a lot of questions about what's going to happen when we make the change and we start doing Act 20 in the winter. So let's just kind of say, first of all, not everything is changing. So grades 4 and 5 will continue using the FastBridge CBM reading assessment as they have in the past. So that is not changed. The math screening will have the same window as the literacy, the reading screening. That's a little different than it was this fall. So my question to you, and we can either just have you think about it and email us, or you can just pop in and say what your thoughts are. This fall, we had 2 separate windows, one for literacy and one for mathematics. They did have some overlap. Our question is, how did that go? Did it work? Is it good? Is it not so good? Does it depend? We're looking for your feedback on this, and I'll send out an email as well just to get some feedback. But anybody have any thoughts about how that went, having 2 different windows at this kind of overlapping? I got 1 thumbs up. So Oh, we got a couple. All right. Um, great. Yes. Question.
It was supposed to be a thumbs up, so I
Oh,
apologize.
no apologies. I'll take a thumbs up over a question any day. So, all right, because the people who are, I work with in CNI and the local improvement team, et cetera, are just wondering. It's like, okay, how did that go? So I'll take the feedback back as we move forward into the rest of the year. Keep that in mind as something that we're trying to balance how this works for schools and specifically for students and teachers. So thank you for sharing that feedback. Yes, exactly. So a lot of this is due to the timeline with the PRP. So here's what is changing in the winter. There's a new assessment window. That window will run from December 2nd through the 31st of January 2025. This corresponds to what the state has said is the window for the new Ames Web Plus screener. Now, this winter window is going to be really interesting because of our winter break. So when you screen prior to the break, there are things that have to fall into place, and if you screen after the break, there are things that are timing, especially around when PRPs get sent, etc. So there's going to be more details coming, not necessarily from me, but I want to first of all give you the window that is coming up. Also, principals will be asked, I think today is Tuesday, they'll be asked tomorrow to determine who would be on a small school screening team. In other words, who in your school would be the folks who would be actually doing the screening so that we can have you can do smaller groups of students, you can move faster, etc., and make sure that all the students are covered while leaving staff in the classroom. Doesn't mean the teachers won't have access to the data. It just simply means that we'll be having a screening team. We'll get those folks access at the school-wide level, and it would be a good thing for them to be able to work. We'll get them the professional development that goes along with that particular training or that role and responsibility as well. But I wanted to give you a heads up that these are some of the things that are coming, and that the window has changed for the winter. All right. So I know that's really quick, but for right now, the big thing is that winter screening window. I have not changed it in the calendar that is found on the assessment website, but it will be changed in the very near future. Okay. Going on right now in schools, hopefully, is the fall climate survey. So I just want to double check with that. Students and staff, this opened on the 7th of October, and it's closing not this Friday. No, I think it's about 2 weeks. So Friday, the 1st of November. So you still have time. Now, I believe that there was a slide deck and a script that was shared. If not, let me know and we'll make sure that you get that. Students will have in their email account an email that will have the subject line, important, your MMSD climate survey link. So if you haven't provided time for students yet, and they were like, I can't find it because it's either gone to the bottom or it might be in their spam folder, every Monday, those students who have not completed the survey will be sent a brand new email. So it'll rise to the top of their email list. Also, if you have questions or concerns about this, let me see if I've got the next slide. Nope. All right. If you have questions or concerns, the best place to go with that is email. The email address mmsdsurveys@madison.k12.wi.us. We'll put that in the notes. MMSD surveys, and that'll get you to the team that's running the climate survey. I know they're also working really hard at getting the completion rate documents so that it will update all the time constantly, and making that available to each of the schools. So please know that that is all coming. All right. So also coming up, grade 2 Naglieri General Abilities Test. And again, this is going to be led by your AL staff member who works with your school. The window is the 28th of October through the 15th of November. All students will be taking that nonverbal portion. And remember, or maybe you don't know, but literally it is A is to B as C is to D. Only it doesn't use letters. It will use geometric shapes and different colors. So it's very nonverbal. You do not have to be able to speak English. In fact, the instructional piece is kind of a little short video that's also not in English. It is just a kind of a cartoon graphic that shows how to take the test. Some students will be invited to take additional subtests, the quantitative and the verbal. There's a letter that will be going out from the AL staff through your school, so they can ensure that the families in grade 2 are aware of this. They'll also be getting the results out probably in December, most likely after the new year. So that's something that's coming up, just so you know that that's going on in your building if you aren't already aware. If you have DLI or DBE students, they will be doing the Apple assessment. They will be doing only one of the 4 different pieces, the interpersonal communication, which is a speaking and listening kind of assessment. That window also opens at the same time as the Naglieri. They will need to have headsets. So that would be the headphones with the microphone that works. They will be able to record their voices. There will be tickets that will be arriving shortly, as well as how the staff member can log in and see what's going on as far as the scoring and get the data and the results for each of their students. So I'll be sending out a how-to document along with the tickets for every school to the person listed as the Apple coordinator for each school. If you have questions, please make sure you connect with me. Happy to communicate that and share it with the team that's supporting Apple. And again, just those of you who are wondering what this is, it's similar to Access, which assesses the English proficiency of every student. This one happens to be an assessment of another language. So for instance, in this case, it's Spanish. All right, speaking of Access, let's move on to this. This year, the Access for ELLs window opens on December 2nd and closes on January 31st. And if you're saying to yourself, Tim, I just heard those dates. Those are the winter window for literacy or reading screening. You are absolutely right. We have no choice on these. These are the state offered windows. We're providing you the maximum amount of time on each of these. So scheduling, of course, will be something that is critical to think about. Now, as I've shared with many of you before, I'll do that again right now. I would urge you to think about scheduling as many students through the process of Access early in the window rather than waiting until after winter break. Things that happen over winter break, we suddenly realize that student is on vacation with the family, they're going to be gone the entire month. They've started, but they haven't finished. And so there are lots of different things that go on. And so I'm just urging you to think about and work on scheduling earlier rather than later. And many of you have already done that in the past. It's great to see that a huge chunk of students have their access assessment completed prior to winter break. Now we're going to go through a little bit of a timeline. It says today, October 10th. Well, that was for another group. But on October 10th, the DPI did the initial pull of student data and put it into the AMS platform. Now, that data is there, and we're working on making sure that it is clean, but there will be a second data pull on the 24th of October. So that is coming up in sometime next week. What that data pull does is it says, here's our final list of ELs in Madison Metropolitan School District, and they generate labels. The labels are really critical, especially for students in younger grades. Grades 4 and up typically don't have anything, any paper material, but students in third grade and below will have paper material. And having that label makes it so much easier to identify the student's material, because if you don't have it, you will have to do a full page of bubbles with the student demographic information, etc. So those labels will be pulled on the 24th and generated at that point. The platform called AMS opens on the 31st of October, and we'll be getting you access to that shortly. We will have another meeting prior to the actual window opening, and so we'll go through some of the details about what is available, how to get all the information, and take you through step by step at that meeting prior to the Thanksgiving break. A little bit more about the timeline. So once those labels have been uploaded, all the information for that, one of the things that will be coming to you is a roster of students that are expected to take the access test. That is, the expectation is if a student is identified as an English learner and they have not exited, then they are expected to take the access for ELLs. Also coming on that will be an accommodations list. So there are accommodations to the access for ELs, but then there's also the alternate access assessment. So keep in mind that there are two different assessments, depending on the student's IEP, which one that they will get. So you're going to be getting a list. And the list of students with accommodations may have blanks, which means let us know that there's something there, something that should be there. If a student has an IEP that is still open, that will be kind of a trigger to say, hey, we need to make sure that this information is there. You don't have to double check everything. All the accommodations are pulled directly from the software that has been used to write the IEPs. So that should all be current, but just want you to double check on who is in your building and what accommodations are, that everybody has accommodations that are appropriate. So those lists need to be reviewed and sent back to us by November 7th. Once that is done, tickets will then start to be printed. We'll be sending those to you the week of October 18th. And yes, we are still at a stage where even though we have something called ClassLink, this assessment does not support ClassLink. So there are tickets students will have to log in, as we've done in the past, and make sure that they complete those. And those tickets are considered to be secure material. So the initial shipment of material comes to the district on or about the 22nd of November. Again, that is, Sarah, great question. We'll get to that in just a second. The initial shipment comes on or about November 22nd, so it gets to us right before the window. We'll get you the material as quickly as possible. However, I'm sure that you will not have enough alternate access kits for the students that you have. So those will be ordered once the window is opened, and there is a turnaround shortly after that. Okay, so the question, if I have it correctly, if you need to add a testing accommodation to an IEP, what are the steps to do that? I'm wondering if Stacy Will is in the house, or Sarah, or someone would want to answer that, because I don't want to get it incorrect.
Sorry, I'm multitasking, but I can answer that question.
Okay.
We need to add an accommodation. So that's a review revise IEP that PSTs in your building should be able to walk you through. It's pretty simple. But
Okay.
IEP does need to be reopened to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So by the time December 2nd comes along, you should have almost all your materials. You'll definitely have your tickets, and things will get to you as soon as possible. Now, there is professional development. There is training required for access, and a couple things on this page, on the slide deck. So if you get this slide deck, please, this will make the hyperlinked portions active. You'll have that. You can see the access training overview for this year. So it kind of walks through what is required, how much time it will take. If you're brand new to access, you do not have an account, a WIDA account, you need to have one set up. In order to do that, please just email widascreener@madison.k12.wi.us, and we will set you up, or anyone on your staff. So the professional development is contained within the wida.wisc.edu website. So you need to have access and an account in order to actually do the professional development. All the professional development, as I said, is in the training overview document that's at the top of the slide. But there's an online access for ELS administration module. That's the one you need to complete. If you are going to be giving the alternate access, there is a separate module for that, and you should complete that after completing the first one. At the end of the first module, you may or may not be taking the second, but at the end of the online access for ELS administration, there is a quiz. You will need to have 80% correct in order to be certified. And if you're not, you need to go back and find the right answers, take the quiz again. So just a fair warning that there is a quiz involved. If you have already proctored or given the access before, again, you will need to take the quiz. This is an annual piece. You'll need to take the quiz. However, you don't have to go through the module. If you know this, it's like, yep, done that. That's my life. You can go in and take the quiz and be certified with an 80% or better. So that's what I want to, that's the big thing that I want you to be thinking about, is the professional development that everyone needs to be either reviewed or take for the first time prior to the December 2nd window opening, or prior to actually giving the assessment. If you're not giving the assessment on day one, then you don't have to have that. But prior to giving the assessment, people need to be certified. That's a good question, Patty.
I can address that. Yes, we probably should have inserted that into the slide. There is also, if you are going to be administering kindergarten access, it is a separate training module. So you should take the training module for the type of assessment that you will be administering. And there is at the very end of that training overview document, it does refer to kindergarten, but that is also available at weta.wisc.edu.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's always good to have a team. All right, random questions that usually come up to us regarding access. First of all, if you have questions at any time, it's the same address that we use for the WETA screener. So WETA screener at. And you'll be connected with a team of folks who are in support of you, and will know answers very quickly or can find them very quickly. Another question that we often get is, what happens if there are students that are off-site, or they're in Madison Promise? Their primary enrollment is with you, but they are actually elsewhere. The responsibility for testing all students who are primarily enrolled with your school falls on you. Now, that being said, working with Andrew Stendahl at Madison Promise to communicate with families is a great first step. Connect with him, and he'll help work with the families to make sure they can come in for testing. If it's an additional different site, it may be that we just get the materials, the test tickets to the site, and they may be able to they'll go through and do the assessment itself. So if a student is primarily enrolled at your school, you are the responsible group to actually give the assessment. Now, what happens if we have a student who arrives, let's just say December 5th? Can we just jump in and give them the WETA screener? Excuse me, can we jump in and give them access? And the answer is no. We follow the same process as we do all the time when we get a newly enrolled student, and the home language survey indicates that there may be a need to screen them. So registration, home language survey, WETA screener, and then that would indicate whether the student is actually an English learner or not. In which case, if they are, then we'll get the access to access. They will be taking the access assessment. If the WETA screener indicates that they are not an English learner, then that's it. So continue to follow the process. We're not going to skip forward, even if it's getting close to the end of the window. So speaking of the end of the window, what happens when we get students who enroll very late in January? This always happens. Someone will be enrolling 3 days before the window closes for access testing. They're identified as an English learner. Now what? Because of the amount of time and effort it takes to do all of this, I'm saying that as a district, we have a cutoff date, so to speak, of January 24th. Anyone enrolling after January 24th, we're not going to do the access assessment with those students this year. They will just continue on, and we'll catch them next year. If they arrive before the 24th, then my expectation is that, yes, in fact, we'll go through the process, enrolling, identifying, and then assessing with access. And finally, alternate access are for students who have an IEP but are also English language learners. So who gives that? Because we're really kind of commingling the staff who support these students. And I don't have a crisp and clear answer for you. What I do want to say is that both the CC staff and your ESL team should get together and determine who is the best person, who is the best connection with that student, who can bring out the best in that student, as far as ensuring that they actually give their best effort on this particular assessment. When you have that answer, that's who we should have be proctoring this assessment. So if it's a CC teacher, then they will need to go through the professional development to actually give the access. If it's the ESL teacher, then they would have to do that. Now, they can work in tandem and support each other. So you can, for instance, there are several of the subtests that can be done as a small group. So they can work together to kind of do a team effort on that and support our students. But it needs to be a local decision, and it's not something that can be easily done at central office or at all at central office. All right, questions. Just a reminder, if you have questions or people on your team or at your school have questions about data, protocols, dashboards, where to find this, etc., oftentimes the best way of going is to use the school support requests. That gets filtered to the correct people. And for instance, if it's a research question like, we need to know the data for this, the research team is the best place to go, and that request will go there. However, I do want to make sure you understand that we're not just saying, don't ask us anything. On the contrary, if it's anything that has to do with the assessments, it's a technical solution or a problem, it is something that is before the test, during the test, after the test, that's with student or class level issues, please make sure that you connect with us as always. And if you don't know which it is, send us the question. We may have to say, sorry, this is best done with a school support request. One of the things that does do is that's tracked so that we can know how best to resolve issues that are out there in several schools. All right. Sorry, I missed it, but Lee had a question. Do we know when the AIMSweb Plus training will be available for staff and how much time will be needed to complete said training? So it's going to be ready soon. I don't know what that means, whether it's this week. I know that the principals have a meeting tomorrow, that this will be a part of the conversation. And again, one of the things that they're going to be asked is to basically say, these 4 people or these 5 people are going to be my school screening team. And so those people will then have access to the professional development. And it varies based on the grade level, but it is not actually that all that long at each grade level. So I haven't taken it yet. It is just being finished, and it will be on the our professional development portal, our talent portal. I know that's a non-answer. Sorry, Lee, but that's what I know. All right. If you want to get a hold of us, here's our phone numbers. You can also email us at FAST or WIDA Screener. Probably more often than not, you'll be using WIDA Screener in the near future. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we'll stop recording and see what kind of questions we have out there. Thank you very much.